The boring history for sleep, the secret vocabulary of ancient Egyptian pillow makers. Welcome, gentle listener. This is Whispers of History, your quiet corner of the internet where facts are soft, sarcasm is subtle, and time tends to stretch out until your eyelids do the same. Tonight's tale will drift gently down the Nile and tuck itself under the cotton-stuffed mysteries of ancient Egyptian pillows. Before we begin, do yourself a favor, like and subscribe. Not because it's mandatory, but because we both know you'll forget later. And when you finally do wake up, it'll be easier to find your way back here. Leave a comment telling us your location and your current time. Are you in Tokyo at 3 a.m. with a cup of barley tea? Or maybe Chicago, 9:42 p.m., wondering if that hummus in your fridge is still edible? Either way, we're in this together. You may not make it through this whole day in Thebes, we're not judging. Honestly, we wouldn't either. Now let's ease into tonight's journey. The air smells dry but clean, like linen sheets baked under the sun and beaten by hand until they sighed themselves into softness. You walk slowly past the reed-tangled edge of the Nile, where frogs mutter discontentedly in the mud, and a crane eyes you as if you've stepped into its office hours. You're in Thebes, not the loud Thebes of processions and priests, not the postcard pyramids and booming drums. No, this is domestic Thebes. The Thebes of dusty sandals, ankle bracelets with missing beads, and a woman shouting at her goat because it stepped on the good mat again. You hear the rhythmic hiss of a loom inside a workshop. Not grand, not humble, just determined, the kind of place that smells like flax fibers and gossip. Inside, 4 women sit cross-legged, fingers flying as they twist linen threads into long, narrow bands. These will become pillowcases, although perhaps not the kind of pillow you were hopping for. Here in Egypt, a pillow is a carved wooden headrest designed to keep your elaborate hairstyle safe and your dreams slightly misaligned with comfort. The major historical fact of the moment: ancient Egyptians believed the head was the seat of spiritual essence. Hence, elevating it while sleeping wasn't just hygienic, it was a sacred safety precaution. Sleep was a rehearsal for death, and nobody wanted to botch the dress rehearsal. Still, not every headrest was alike. These women, the real artisans behind sleep, had their own whispered vocabulary. They referred to certain curves as the lotus cradle or the jaw catcher. One popular model was even known colloquially as the brother-in-law because it looked supportive but gave you a headache by morning. You trail your fingers along the grooves of a newly sanded piece. Smooth, cool, and designed with such loving awkwardness, it could pass for modern minimalist decor or a prop from a chiropractor's fever dream. An obscure cultural tidbit: pillow makers often carved tiny spells under the surface, unseen inscriptions to ward off scorpions, nightmares, and relatives with bad intentions. If you ever meet someone who says they sleep on wood for spiritual alignment, just know they're about 3,000 years late to the party. Historians still debate whether these pillows were actually comfortable or simply tolerated. like sandals with fashionably painful straps. You step back into the afternoon glow, and the loom clacks behind you like it's waving goodbye. Now you're walking through a narrow street where the sun is lazy but bright, like a cat too well fed to move. Clay walls sweat quietly in the heat, and children chase one another with the energy of small gods and the coordination of slightly stunned beetles. You pass a market stall selling old tools, bronze awls, spindles, and something suspiciously tooth-shaped. The seller raises an eyebrow at you. You nod as if you completely understand the exchange rate for worn-out chisels. Your feet take you toward the edge of the artisan quarter where the pillow carvers work. Not the linen folks from earlier, these are the wood people, the headdressed sculptors, the chisel poets. They carve from acacia, sycamore, or tamarisk wood, depending on what's available, sacred, or least likely to splinter at midnight. You step into a shaded shed where a man named, which translates roughly as he who sighs at taxes, is carving a fresh piece. His cat is asleep on the blueprint. The blueprint is just a papyrus with doodles and 3 fish bones stuck to it. Precision meets personality. Is muttering a charm under his breath, something about keep demons off the ears. You wonder how many people today still say that before bedtime, probably not enough. Oh, here's your historical fact. Pharaoh was buried with no fewer than 6 different headrests, each designed to elevate his head in death the way his title elevated him in life. Yes, even in eternity, the boy king needed orthopedic support. One weird cultural tidbit: pillow makers sometimes hosted competitions. Who could carve the most symmetrical arc, the smoothest base, or the least haunted wood? The winner earned a painted ostrich feather and free beer at the next moon festival. There are worse reward systems. It shows you a new prototype, slightly curved, wider for the heads of nobles who wore heavy wigs. It's called the elephant sigh. You can't tell if it's a joke or not. Neither can he. As historians still debate whether pillow making was viewed as a respected trade or one notch below basket weaving, depending on whether you carved for temples or for people who forgot to pay last time. A breeze drifts in from the river, bringing with it the smell of fish, sun-warmed water, and secrets. You leave to his tools and the cat to its nap. As you step outside, a woman walks past carrying a clay jar and humming something older than the alphabet. You pass a boy playing with a beetle on a stick, and the beetle wins. Again. And the pillow, soft in theory, wooden in reality, waits quietly in the shadows for its next weary head. The sun has dipped a little lower now, stretching your shadow into a tall, lazy smear across the dusty cobblestone. Everything in Thebes seems to slow down around this hour. People speak more softly. Donkeys pause mid-chew. Even the flies hover like they're debating whether it's worth it to keep buzzing. You follow a row of small homes built with and quiet pride. Their doorways are half curtained with strips of fabric that flutter like gossiping tongues. Inside one home, a woman named Pi is boiling crushed acacia resin in a small clay pot. The scent curls out and dances around your nose, sweet, sharp, and strangely calming. She's a pillow priestess of sorts. A pa isn't a carver or a weaver. She's a fragrance worker, someone who blesses headrests with calming scents and sacred oils before they're delivered to their sleepy destinations. She dips a thin reed into the pot and flicks the tiniest amount onto a freshly carved headrest, whispering a benediction in a sing-song rhythm. The headrest seems indifferent, but the air is transformed. Here's tonight's historical fact. Acacia was considered a holy wood in Egypt, symbolizing rebirth, protection, and the ability to repel both insects and, more dramatically, demons. Naturally, it ended up being a favorite for things you press your face against 8 hours a night. The obscure cultural tidbit. Some wealthier households employed dream readers, sort of ancient therapists meet spiritual consultants, who would examine your dreams, your headrest carvings, and sometimes your toenails to determine your place in the cosmic puzzle. If you dreamt of hippos, probably anxiety. If you dreamt of sandals floating downstream, definitely unresolved jealousy. Historians still debate whether these dream symbols were universally understood, or made up by sleepy scribes who ran out of hieroglyphs and creative patience. A pa hands you a tiny pouch, linen tied with palm fiber filled with dried herbs and perfumed dust. She calls it a sleeping companion. You tuck it into your robes, unsure whether to use it or keep it as a souvenir that smells like the inside of a wise tree. As outside again, the sounds of Thebes begin to shift. The loom beats have quieted. A boy herds goats with exaggerated authority, shouting their names like he's summoning reluctant to a meeting. You pass a potter gently etching an ibis into a bowl. The ibis looks unimpressed, as if to say, again with the bowls. And off in the distance, someone strikes a triangle of metal, a signal that dinner is ready, or perhaps that someone forgot to feed the household cat again. You follow the winding alleys toward the craftsman's temple, not the grand one, a tiny neighborhood shrine, the kind built with spare bricks kept alive by habit, not decree. At its center, surrounded by worn statues and faded offerings, is an altar to a lesser-known protector of sleep and silence. Fitting, you think, for a town that makes sacred furniture out of wood that dares to call itself a pillow. Now you stand quietly there just for a moment. The heat hums low around you. The city exhales. As evening settles in the way flour settles into the folds of an apron, slowly, gently, with purpose. Thebes begins to hum a different lullaby. The gossip dies down, replaced by mortar grinding, a distant flute, and the bark of a very tired dog trying to convince a chicken that this alley is private property. You duck into the communal sleep house, a curious little building used mostly by travelers, apprentices, and those without stable roofs or patient in-laws. The doorway is low, forcing you to bow, and the air inside is scented with warm stone and faint jasmine. It's quieter here. The kind of quiet that seeps into your muscles. Reeds line the floor in wide mats, and along one wall are stacked headrests in neat rows, each tagged with a simple clay token showing who carved it. No names, just symbols, a stalk of barley, a bird with bad posture. It's more than branding. It's a kind of legacy. As a young woman named is smoothing out one of the mats. She's an apprentice sleep monitor. That's right, her job is to observe how people sleep, which pillows lead to the least snoring, and which ones result in waking up convinced you're a priest. She tells you very seriously that pillow design can change your dreams, posture, and even whether or not you remember where you left your second sandal. The historical fact for tonight: sleep houses like these were semi-common in artisan quarters of Egypt during the Middle Kingdom. Not exactly hotels. Not homes. Something in between spaces where people could rest, test headrests, and report back to pillow guilds with vital feedback like, "too firm," or "my neck still hates me." An obscure cultural tidbit: pillow testers were sometimes paid in fermented honey cakes and access to the good bathhouse once a week. Some even became minor celebrities, local icons whose necks were considered blessed with discernment. Lets you try one. You lie down cautiously, placing your head onto a carved headrest called cradle. It's cold, it's oddly comforting, it's functional in a spiritually judgmental sort of way. Your neck isn't convinced yet, but your eyes are starting to vote in favor of this arrangement. And historians still debate whether these communal sleep houses were primarily utilitarian or partially ritualistic. Was this rest or rehearsal? A nap or a temporary goodbye to the waking world? You drift just a little, long enough to see the carved ceiling where constellations dance in slow spirals. Not scientifically accurate but artistically ambitious. A lotus here, a scarab there, all painted in gentle and faded blues, whispering stories as old as insomnia itself. Someone in the next room is humming. You recognize the tune from earlier, the woman with the clay jar perhaps. Or someone else echoing a melody passed down like a pillow passed from mother to daughter. You rise again slowly, the way steam rises from bread, delicate, reluctant. Outside, stars have started to flicker into view like they're being lit by cautious fingers. Down the street, an old man sells roasted barley from a cart. He waves. You wave back. You have no idea who he is, but he seems delighted you exist. Your feet carry you homeward, wherever that is for the night. Maybe one of the pillow women will lend you a spare. Maybe you'll dream of ibises offering sarcastic life advice, or maybe you'll just sleep. Deeply, oddly, perfectly imperfectly, the Egyptian way. You wake just before dawn, or at least you think you do. It's hard to tell in Thebes. The sun isn't up yet, but the birds have already begun their daily town hall meeting, arguing about worms, territory, and whatever that cat was doing near the fig tree. You stretch your neck, not entirely sure if it feels better or just different, and sit up from your woven mat. The pillow you tested last night's cradle has left a faint impression on your skin, like a very small and judgmental piece of furniture tried to teach you a lesson. It's outside the communal sleep house. The city is suspended in that fragile moment where shadows are longer than walls and everything smells faintly of dew, baked stone, and the dreams people forgot to finish. You walk slowly toward the river again. This time your feet remember the path. On the bank you find a quiet cluster of women rinsing linen in the river. Not with haste, not with urgency, just with the rhythm of those who done this 1,000 times. They're humming, not a song exactly, more like a conversation without consonants. This group, you come to learn, belongs to the Rest Guild, a loosely organized circle of weavers and carvers devoted to the sacred science of sleep. Not religion, not politics, just sleep. They believe every piece of sleep furniture holds its own personality. Some headrests are calming, some encourage dreams of flying, some apparently summon cats. You're handed a bundle of fabric to help fold. It's warm from the water, heavy with soap made from animal fat, ash, and crushed lotus petals. Your hands join theirs in motion, squeeze, fold, slap, rinse, repeat. The cloth slaps the water like a soft little rebellion against chaos. Here's your historical fact. Ancient Egyptians washed their linens in the Nile using lye-based soap as early as 2800 BCE. It wasn't gentle, but it was effective. Think of it like the industrial-strength cousin of your lavender-scented detergent, minus the bottle, plus a prayer to not attract crocodiles. A obscure cultural tidbit. The Rest Guild often embroidered coded messages into pillow linens using thread knots. To the untrained eye, they looked like decorative bumps. But in the right light, they formed words peace, clarity, or occasionally, ask your uncle for the money back. And historians still debate whether these linen messages were spiritual blessings or just polite household reminders disguised as divine insight. As you fold another damp sheet, an elder named gently corrects your corner alignment. Not with scorn, with the grace of someone who once taught a goat how to wear a harness. She tells you that the perfect fold sets the mood for perfect rest. It's not just textile, it's an invocation. Though the sun begins to blush along the horizon, and the river lights up in scattered pieces like someone spilled bronze dust over it, you hand back the last piece of linen and bow your thanks. And chuckles and hands you a small charm, a carved reed circle tied with red thread. For when your dreams are too loud, she says, as if that's a perfectly normal problem. You tuck it into your robe next to the scented pouch from Pa. Your inventory of ancient sleep accessories is growing, and none of them are Bluetooth-enabled, surprisingly. Though the city begins to stir louder now. You head toward the Weaver's Square, where today's headrest fabrics will be shaped, dyed, and inscribed. The day is young, but somehow you're already tired. A good tired. The kind you earn. The kind that promises a good story if you let it carry you forward. The Weaver's Square is a soft riot of color and motion. Cloths ripple like water, drying on lines strung between trees. Children dash between fabric walls, playing tag with rules that change every 6 seconds. A donkey naps in the exact center of the chaos, oblivious to all diplomacy. As at one end of the square, a group of dyers are crushing berries, bark, and roots into pigments. Their hands are stained permanently, a living catalog of blues and occasional experiments gone wrong. One woman shows you a pot of dye made from fermented madder root. Smells like regret, she laughs, but it gives the red of royal sleep. A historical fact of the hour. Egyptian textiles were often dyed with natural pigments derived from plants, minerals, and insects. Red from madder, yellow from saffron, and blue from indigo were used not just for clothing, but for bedding too, especially for high-born sleepers who wanted their dreams to match their social status. Now today, the Rest Guild is creating mourning pillows. Not for sadness, for remembrance. They're to be placed in tombs, beautiful linen wrappings, and wooden headrests for those entering the eternal nap. The pillows are not soft, but they are dignified. Each one is etched with the phrase, "You rest with the stars now." A girl named No Older Than 12 shows you how to press symbols into damp linen using an ivory stamp. Her fingers are fast, but her tone is solemn. She says sleep for the living is practice for rest among the ancestors. Then she throws a beetle at her brother for teasing her, so duality exists. An obscure cultural tidbit. Some pillow designs featured mythical animals carved into their sides, lions, jackals, or fantastical hybrids. One common design depicted a serpent swallowing its own tail, symbolizing eternity. Pillow symbolism was serious business, often doubling as protective amulets against the lurking nonsense of the netherworld. Historians still debate whether these symbols were understood by everyone, or just from the neighbor who seemed to be doing well. The weaver next to you laughs when your stamped linen comes out crooked. She gently takes your hands and repositions your grip. The cloth listens to you, she says, but only if you whisper. You nod, pretending you knew that. Though the donkey snorts behind you. As at midday, someone brings out bread and beer, mild stuff, fermented lightly and served in cracked clay mugs. You sit beneath a fig tree, sharing your meal with a boy who insists his pillow carving is better than his father's. He shows you a miniature prototype shaped like a cat. For dreaming of catching mice, he says, or avoiding cousins. The light is hot now but dry. Your eyes feel heavier, your thoughts slower. The fig tree hums with lazy bees, and the linen on your lap smells faintly of warm earth and river ghosts. You lie back for just a moment, just to think, just to feel the way the stamped fabric cradles your neck. It's not soft exactly, but it's familiar now. Ancient, reassuring in the way only hand-shaped wood and old secrets can be. So sleep doesn't take you all at once. It sidles in like a cat curling behind your knees. You don't resist. You're not dreaming, not yet. Just floating somewhere between the warm square and the cold stars. And maybe that's the whole point of a pillow anyway. You wake to the sound of someone humming again, same tune as before. It's carried on a breeze that smells faintly of dried figs, dust, and something chalky. You're still beneath the fig tree, though now there's a woven basket resting near your head, placed there by someone who apparently took pity on your nap posture. Inside the basket, a small clay cup of water, 2 dates, and a note etched into a broken pot shard. It reads, "Good dreams have weight. Eat before they carry you away again." You sit up slowly, brushing fig leaves from your robe. The linen you had been stamping earlier is gone, taken, probably by the girl or one of the guild apprentices. Maybe they're hanging it now, stretching it carefully to dry in the sun like a second skin. You walk back into the weaving yard, now emptier. The clack of looms echoes from somewhere farther off, but this square has quieted. Everyone's off for their midday rest, or what they call the hour of the still shadow, the moment when even statues look like they're taking a break from posing. You wander east toward the carver's enclave again. The path is familiar now. A chipped step here, a low-hanging olive branch there, a rock that looks like a sleeping tortoise, but very much isn't, as you learned yesterday. Today is inspection day. The Pillow Masters, a group of elder craftsmen and women with calloused hands and narrowed eyes, gather once a week to judge the latest headrests. They're looking for balance, symbolism, and something they call spinal integrity, which sounds dramatic but mostly means won't make your neck regret all your life choices. A younger carver is setting up his latest design. You recognize him, he's the one who giggles like a hiccup when nervous. His piece is ambitious, a two-tiered headrest with a delicate bird carved into the support arch. You look closer. The bird has a scroll in its beak and tiny hieroglyphs etched beneath its spell. Let them dream in peace. Today's historical fact. Some ancient Egyptian artisans inscribed short spells onto functional objects, not just for tombs but for everyday life. From headrests to spoons, a protective or calming phrase could turn a mundane item into something sacred. This design is gently placed on a plinth made of sun-baked clay. The Pillow Masters circle it like cats around a new cushion. Curious, judgmental, slightly offended it wasn't their idea. Then one of them, an elderly woman named, leans down, runs a finger along the curve and nods. Slowly, as if a blessing had passed through her knuckles and into the wood. Almost faints from relief. You turn to admire another piece, one carved from dark tamarisk wood. This one features a winding snake pattern that spirals beneath the arch. No explanation, no title, just the snake watching itself forever. A quiet reminder that sleep too is a cycle, shed your day and begin again. An obscure cultural tidbit. In elite tombs, pillows weren't just resting places, they were talismans, often accompanied by spells from the Book of the Dead, which included instructions like beware the demons who chew heads and protect the sleeper from upside-down dreams. Ancient nightmares weren't just inconvenient, they were logistical problems for the afterlife. Historians still debate whether ordinary citizens believed all this, or just liked the idea of protective bedtime furniture because, frankly, some nights are just like that. You leave the enclave as the shadows stretch long and lean, hugging the corners of houses and curling like cats around cooking fires. You hear singing from a nearby courtyard. 3 voices, untrained but confident, sing a song about sleep that includes the phrase, "May your dreams taste of honey and not regret." Well, you think that's oddly specific. But then again, regret is a flavor everyone's tasted. Evening in Thebes doesn't fall, it seeps. Slowly, like oil into parchment, like a secret into a crowded room. You make your way through a narrow alley you haven't explored before, one that smells of ink, old papyrus, and roasted chickpeas. A scribe is sitting outside with a reed pen tucked behind his ear, copying texts under a lantern made from horn and beeswax. He looks up and nods, motioning you toward a room just behind him. The archivist's chamber, he says. If you want to know how people slept 200 years ago, or why they stopped using gooseneck pillows. Inside the chamber, it's cool and dim. Scrolls line every surface, some rolled, some stacked, some crumbling. A small fan is tied with palm leaves and pushed gently by a dripping water wheel. The effect is surprisingly modern, like ancient air conditioning powered by quiet ambition. An old man, impossibly thin, emerges from the shadows. His eyes are pale, his eyebrows long enough to braid. He introduces himself as Ankh, the keeper of sleep records. You resist asking how long he's had the job. He pulls out a scroll and unrolls it slowly. It's a registry from a noble family listing the types of pillows used by each generation: curved wood, stacked linen, head cuppers, dream catchers carved to resemble lotus flowers. One entry written in shakier hand says simply, "Too soft, regret everything." A historical fact: pillow types were often passed down within families, not just the items themselves, but blueprints, preferred angles, and even sleeping positions. Some families kept diagrams of the exact way a head should rest on their preferred model. Like bedtime yoga, but with more rules and fewer stretch bands. Though the archivist shows you another scroll, this one featuring sketches of dreams recorded by the dream priests. A giant crocodile carrying baskets of dates. A sun that refused to set. A headrest that whispered names in the night. He pauses there looking at you. That one, he says softly, was carved from wood taken from a tree struck by lightning. People believed it remembered the voice of the storm. This obscure cultural tidbit. Some elite pillow makers claimed their wood had to be harvested only on the night of the full moon by someone who had not spoken for a full day. Whether this was spiritual or just a ploy to avoid workplace gossip remains unclear. Yet historians still debate whether these scrolls reflect genuine belief or were part of a quiet competition among aristocrats to have the most elaborate nighttime routines. Your pillow has storm memory, mine dreams in color. Ankh hands you a worn fragment of linen from one of the ancient pillow wrappings. Stitched into the corner, almost invisible, is a phrase in red thread. Remember who you were before sleep softened the edges. You carry that thought with you as you exit the chamber. Outside, the stars are clearer now, burning holes into the fabric of the sky. A dog barks once, then nothing. You pass a group of children lying on the rooftops, watching the constellations with sticky fingers and quiet awe. One of them waves lazily. You wave back. Your steps slow. The streets grow familiar again. The headrest you tried last night is still available at the sleep house. You're not sure if you want it again, but your neck seems to have grown used to the insult. You lie down once more, slipping into position, the stars framing the ceiling beams like quiet judges. The air smells of ink, tamarisk, and distant honey. And as your eyes slip shut, you feel it. That gentle weight of history not as something distant and cold, but something warm and curved to the shape of a human head. You wake before the first rooster. Not because of noise. The city hasn't made a sound yet. It's the kind of stillness you can hear, like the world has gently paused to let your mind catch up. The headrest beneath you feels acceptable. You're not sure that's a compliment, but in the Egyptian pillow world, it's high praise. You stretch your arms and hear the quiet creak of old wood, both from your shoulder and The room is bathed in a shade of blue so delicate it seems invented just for dawn. Everything looks dream-washed. The woven mat, the vase in the corner, the sleeping cat who probably isn't yours but has decided otherwise. You walk through the courtyard behind the sleep house. A small garden blooms there, rows of mint, basil, and chamomile, grown for infusions, remedies, and the occasional tea ceremony that turns into philosophical debates about beetles and fate. A young apprentice named is already there, barefoot in the dew, gently shaking dried chamomile into a reed basket. She doesn't speak, but offers you a cup of steaming herb water. You sit on a flat stone beside her, sipping slowly. It tastes like silence with a hint of field. Now, today's historical fact. Ancient Egyptians were pioneers of herbal sleep aids. Chamomile, blue lotus, and poppy derivatives were infused in wine or water and administered to the restless. They weren't sedatives in the modern sense, more like gentle nudges toward the realm of dreams. An obscure cultural tidbit. Some sleep temples even had dream fountains, pools of scented water beside the sleeping chambers. It was believed that the scent of water alone could guide a person into a favorable dream, especially if stirred by hand just before slumber. That's right, pre-sleep rippling was a real spiritual strategy. It finally speaks softly. The water remembers who walks near it. She doesn't explain and you don't ask. Some mornings are too sacred for follow-up questions. You wander toward the old part of town. This isn't where the pillow artisans live, it's where their ancestors are buried. The necropolis begins with a long, dusty slope, the kind that makes your sandals reconsider their life paths. As at the top, a small tomb with faded paint catches your eye. The mural depicts a man sleeping peacefully on a curved headrest with little gold stars painted above him. A line of text beneath reads, "He dreamed of sailing forever. May the winds always bend toward his rest." Now the door is sealed, of course, but the image lingers in your mind. A local guide with wind-bitten cheeks and a voice like river stone offers to walk you deeper into the necropolis. His name is not the famous son of Ramses II, but he does enjoy pretending he's related. He tells you that pillow styles in tombs evolved depending on dynasty, region, and oddly enough, fashion. Some were minimal. Others were flamboyant, gilded, painted, even encrusted with beads. Comfort wasn't the point, he says. Status was, even if it meant neck cramps for eternity. Historians still debate whether the more decorative tomb pillows were meant to impress gods or intimidate rival nobles, who might be peeking in from the afterlife. You pass another tomb mural, this one showing a man sitting upright in bed, sipping what looks suspiciously like tea with a cat perched on his chest. The caption reads, "He awoke often but with good humor. You like him immediately." Leads you to a stone bench beneath a tree that's more fossil than flora. He sits beside you and pulls from his satchel a tiny wooden headrest, miniature, polished, perfect. "This," he says, "was carved for a child lost too young. They believed a soft journey would carry her to her mother's arms." Now you don't speak, you just run your fingers over the curve, feeling the warmth that still lives inside it. Wood doesn't forget. The sun rises slowly, like honey being poured into an old bowl. The tombs behind you catch its gold in all their cracks and stories. Now you exhale. Now you don't need to understand all the symbols. So some things are simply meant to be felt and remembered. Later, as the sun begins its confident arc across the sky, you find yourself back in the living part of town, but now in a section unfamiliar, where the scribes and scholars work. Here, the streets are quieter and even the dogs seem bookish. Papyrus scrolls dry in windows. Ink smells linger like perfume. You pass one open doorway where a woman balances a scroll on her knee and whispers lines of poetry to a wide-eyed toddler who clutches a string tied to a beetle. The beetle seems unimpressed. You're invited into the Hall of Language, part library, part temple, part nap den. Pillars etched with verses about sleep greet you. One reads, "Sleep, brother of death, but kinder by far." You're led by a temple librarian named, a man with soft eyes and too many quills in his belt. He wears robes stained with blue lotus ink and has the tired elegance of someone who has read every scroll twice and still believes there's a better translation out there somewhere. He guides you through an exhibit of dream scripts, scrolls written entirely from dreams collected by temple priests. Some are poetic, some are nonsense. One simply reads, "A fish with the face of my uncle. He said taxes are forever." Here's your historical fact. Dream interpretation was an integral part of Egyptian spiritual life. The Dream Book, one of the earliest known dream manuals, categorized dreams into good and bad outcomes. For example, dreaming of eating crocodile meant you will be powerful. Dreaming of drinking warm beer meant you will be judged. An obscure cultural tidbit. Scribes specializing in dream texts often made up symbols on the spot, then blamed divine inspiration when asked what they meant. One symbol, an owl with a mustache, appears in 3 different dream scrolls and is still totally unexplained. Historians still debate whether dreams were always meant to be interpreted literally, or if priests simply said whatever kept the dreamers from panicking. Offers you a seat beside a low table with a scroll, a reed pen, and a pot of ink. Record your dream, he says, or invent one. Either way, it will be read by someone who needs it. Now you think a moment, then slowly write. A wooden pillow under a sky of fish. The stars blinked Morse code. One spelled my name, the others said rest easy. Nod solemnly. A good dream, he says, confusing but good. As you rise, he hands you a tiny inked charm, a hieroglyph for sleep inside a circle. Hang it above your resting place, he says. Even memory sleeps better when named. You leave the hall of language with ink on your fingers and the weight of old dreams in your pocket. As outside, the wind has picked up slightly. It smells like baked brick, distant lavender, and the promise of another nap you haven't scheduled yet. Now the city moves around you like a dream itself, familiar but never the same twice. And somewhere not far, someone carves another pillow, not yet shaped, not yet named, just waiting for a head worth holding. As afternoon has folded itself gently over Thebes, the sun, now reclining like a half-satisfied cat on a windowsill, casts everything in a golden haze. You're walking slower now, not because you're tired, though you are, but because the city itself seems to demand it. Even the breeze is in no rush. You follow the curved lane that leads past the dye pits, now abandoned for the day, their rims still stained with yesterday's purples and reds. A dog is napping in the shade of a broken cart. Someone's sandal lies near its snout, and the dog has decided it's a suitable pillow. The irony isn't lost on you. You're heading toward a smaller district now, one not marked on maps but known by scent and memory. The locals call it New Het, or the place of sacred comfort. It's where the final pillow artisans live, not the carvers or weavers, but the embalmers, the painters, the last hands to touch a headrest before it's placed in a tomb. You enter a workshop nestled into the side of a low stone slope. Inside, a woman named is gently sanding a headrest so old it looks like it was carved before language. She doesn't look up, but speaks as if she's been expecting you. "This one's for a general," she says. "He dreamed of jackals and drums. Wanted the pillow shaped like a lion's paw, said it would remind him to stay alert in death." She holds the piece up to the light. It's beautiful and strange, one end carved in the shape of a paw, the other in a delicate curve, smooth enough to reflect light. Along the arch, she's painted faint scenes. Soldiers sleeping under the stars, their heads on wood, their dreams spilling into the sand. Today's historical fact. For high-ranking officials and warriors, headrests weren't just tools, they were declarations. A lion paw meant bravery. A falcon wing implied divine protection. One prince even requested a headrest in the shape of an open eye, claiming he would watch the afterlife before it noticed him. An obscure cultural tidbit. Some elite embalmers used powdered turquoise mixed with honey to bless pillow surfaces, believing it kept the mind fresh during eternal slumber. The mixture hardened like glaze, turning the headrest into something between a relic and a dessert topping. Now gestures toward a shelf of scrolls. "Requests," she says. "Everyone wants something special, even in sleep." One woman asked for her pillow to hum when the moon was full. I told her that's not how wood works, she still paid. Historians still debate whether these customizations were honored fully or exaggerated in tomb art for poetic flair. Much like today's interior designers, the artisans of Thebes knew when to let the client believe in a bit of magic. Offers you a brush, not to paint but to dust. You gently sweep red clay from the creases of a half-finished headdress shaped like a crocodile's back, oddly specific, oddly charming. She nods at your work and says nothing more. You stay there longer than expected, watching her hands, listening to the slow scrape of wood under cloth. It's the kind of sound that untangles knots in your chest. She hums a tune older than her tools, a lullaby without words. When you finally step outside, the sun has softened into something kinder. The shadows stretch longer, but they don't feel ominous. They feel like beds being made by the light. You walk on slower still. In your pocket, a sliver of turquoise dust clings to your fingertip, refusing to let go. Evening tiptoes across the rooftops of Thebes. It doesn't announce itself. It simply replaces the light with something gentler, as if the sky is slowly being covered with a linen sheet stitched with stars. You find yourself at the edge of town now, where homes give way to fields, barley, flax, papyrus swaying like they're gossiping among themselves. This is where the pillow makers come to rest. Not sleep. Rest, it's different. You sit beside a wide irrigation canal. The water moves slowly, carrying glints of gold and green and the occasional stubborn frog. Across the canal, a woman is laying out fabrics on smooth stones. She waves. You wave back, nothing else is said. Behind you, a small group begins to gather. Young, old, in between. They're not a crowd, but a collection. Each carries a bundle, some of wood, some of cloth, one even has what looks like a sack of feathers. You follow them up a low hill where a fire has been lit. Someone is brewing date tea. Someone else is stringing thin reed instruments. It's a pillow ceremony, rare, quiet, and never advertised. The artisans gather once every few weeks to present experimental designs, tell stories, and most importantly, lie down and test each other's work under the night sky. Tonight's historical fact. While not widely recorded in formal archives, oral traditions suggest pillow ceremonies were real, private, communal gatherings where artisans celebrated sleep not just as a function but as a craft. It wasn't about sales. It was about curiosity, honor, and sometimes dreams that had nowhere else to go. One woman unrolls a headdress shaped like a lotus in bloom. The petals rise to cradle the skull, while beneath it the stem curves into a subtle spiral. She calls it the unfolding. A nearby elder whispers, "Too soft," but you can tell he's secretly impressed. An obscure cultural tidbit. Some Theban pillow ceremonies included a ritual known as the seven sighs, where participants would lie on a new headdress and exhale 7 times, each sigh symbolizing a worry let go. If the 7th sigh came easily, the design was considered a success. If not, the carver would pretend they meant it that way. Historians still debate whether these ceremonies influenced official sleep temple practices, or if they were quietly dismissed by the priesthood as charming nonsense. You're handed a piece to try, curved acacia, painted with images of the moon in its 8 phases. You lie back on it as the tea is passed around. The music begins. Low reed tones, soft hand drums, and a voice singing about the river's memory, how it forgets everything but your weight. Though the headrest is cool, your body size once, maybe twice. You're not sure if you make it to 7. Though the stars above are bright now, bolder than usual or maybe just closer. So someone shares a story about a boy who dreamed he was a fish, then a boat, then the net that caught both. He never slept the same after that, they say, and everyone nods as if that's normal. As a small cat curls into your side, you're not sure if it's real or borrowed from a dream. It doesn't matter. This isn't a night for logic. This is a night for old wood, new stories, and the sacred silliness of trying to make sleep into an art form. Your head rests gently on the carved crescent. Your thoughts drift like papyrus boats. And for a while, there is only the hush of the reeds, the pull of the stars, and the feeling of being held. Not by a pillow, not by a story, but by something older than both. You sleep so deeply that you forget you're in Thebes. Not just Thebes, but a Thebes where pillows matter more than politics and dreams are considered architectural achievements. When you wake, it's not morning yet, but it is something like morning's breath. That cool in-between moment where night is still brushing its teeth and the sun hasn't remembered its job. The pillow is still beneath your head, crescent-shaped, solid, gently cradling your skull like a soft-spoken opinion. The fire has gone down to embers. Someone has placed a thin woven cloth over you, smelling of myrrh and sun-warmed fig leaves. You feel like a wrapped parcel waiting to be delivered to a nicer version of reality. Around you, a few others are still resting. Some are lying on headrests that look like miniature temples. Others are curled up on nothing but mats, muttering quietly into sleep. A baby is nestled against its mother, back, drooling enthusiastically on what appears to be a headrest shaped like a fish. You approve of this deeply. You sit up and stretch. The stars above are beginning to blink out, replaced by a faint ribbon of gold on the horizon. A man nearby, older, in a robe the color of baked clay, smiles at you and says, "Good sleep carves the soul smooth." Then he returns to sipping his tea as if that was a normal sentence. You wander toward the edge of the gathering, where a few artisans are packing their tools. A younger man named, wide-eyed and still chewing the tail end of a barley cake, beckons you to his display. He's working on a radical design, something he calls the floating rest. It's a pillow suspended by braided rope from a frame, intended to move gently with the sleeper's breath. "I tested it last week," he says proudly. "Woke up upside down, but the dreams were incredible." Here's your historical fact. In the late periods of Egyptian history, particularly under Nubian and early Greek influence, design experiments flourished, not just in temples and tombs, but also in the mundane. Hybrid sleeping platforms and hanging mats began appearing in regional art, suggesting a trend toward comfort, or at least curiosity. An obscure cultural tidbit. Some nobles commissioned traveling pillow testers who would rate their headrests across cities, recording how well one slept in different climates, altitudes, or near different gods. These testers were given embroidered sashes, discounted beer, and often invited to dinner parties just to talk about sleep. Historians still debate whether the concept of dream architecture, emerged organically from pillow experimentation, or was pushed by a few ambitious sculptors with too much time and a flair for poetic nonsense. It hands you a wooden disc the size of a coin. It's carved with a tiny pair of closed eyes and a single lotus. It's called a sleep token, he says. If someone gives you one, you owe them a nap, no excuses. You pocket it, feeling strangely honored. By now, the sky has shifted fully into morning. The gold has thickened into amber. The city of Thebes stretches and yawns. You can hear water carriers clinking their jugs, priests chanting faintly from a rooftop, and a donkey having a spirited argument with a rooster. The day has begun. But you're not quite ready for it yet. You walk back through the flax fields with soft steps, the stalks brushing against your legs like shy children. The linen-clad world welcomes you back without question. You're part of it now. Now you're one of the sleepers who knows. The next day unfolds like an old scroll, crinkled at the edges, faintly perfumed and slower than necessary. You find yourself in a small garden within the artisans' quarter, seated beside a shallow pond surrounded by date palms. The air smells of water, mint, and dry earth. A stone bench has been carved in the shape of a reclining lion. You sit on its back, mildly uncomfortable, mildly impressed. Across from you, a woman is arranging small clay figures along the pond's edge. Each one is shaped like a headdress with faces, happy faces, sad ones. One looks like it just received terrible news. These, she says, are dream spirits. Each pillow invites one. We sculpt them as warnings or invitations. You ask her name. She replies, I make sleep companions, toys if you're feeling dismissive, talismans if you're being respectful. She hands you one. A squat, grumpy-looking hippo with exaggerated eyebrows and what appears to be a feather boa. That one fights off anxiety dreams about unfinished grain storage. Is historical fact. Children in ancient Egypt often slept with carved dolls or amulets intended to keep bad dreams away. These figures ranged from practical, carved cats, protective deities, to delightfully strange, like the turtle-headed guardian of Don't Wake Up Crying. An obscure cultural tidbit. Some adult sleepers also kept sleep companions, though they were disguised as art pieces. One popular figure was Bes, a dwarf god of protection, music, and childbirth, often depicted dancing or sticking his tongue out. A Bes figure near the bed meant bad spirits would either laugh themselves away or feel deeply uncomfortable. Historians still debate whether the presence of Bes in bedrooms was symbolic of broader protective theology, or just a widely accepted excuse to keep a goofy statue near your mattress. Dips a brush into a pot of crushed and begins painting a dream figure shaped like a crocodile riding a wave. You don't ask questions. Some symbolism is best left mysterious. She tells you that once a year, during the night of blue silence, sleep artisans place their finest work along the Nile and let them float away on reed boats. A gift to the gods of dreams, she says, and a test. If your pillow sinks, it wasn't ready. You raise an eyebrow. She shrugs. Most float, but we pretend not to notice the ones that don't. The pond ripples slightly. A frog lands on a lily pad and stares at you like it's sizing up your intentions. You glance down at your reflection, drowsy eyes, smudged linen, and a fine dusting of sleep still clinging to your cheek. You look like someone who's been dreaming with their eyes open. And hands you a tiny headdress, just a model, maybe 3 fingers wide. On the bottom is carved a single word, return. Now you slip it into your satchel next to your sleep token and the turquoise charm. Not all sleep is for rest, she says. Some is for remembering. You leave her garden quietly, the scent of mint trailing behind you like a second thought. The city opens up again as you walk, the alleys warm, the vendors louder, the donkeys twice as smug. But beneath the noise, beneath the chores, beneath the hum of life, the headdress still waits. Smooth, curved, unyielding, waiting not for your head, but for the dreams it knows you'll bring. Thebes has moods, you're starting to notice them. Some days are crisp and deliberate, where everyone seems to be marching to some unseen metronome. Others, like today, unravel slowly, like a bolt of linen dropped from a rooftop, tumbling, unbothered, taking its time to catch the wind. You're in the southern marketplace now, not the loud part with fish and bargaining. The quieter side, the one tucked between 2 temples and half covered in reed mats and shade. The vendors here don't shout, they gesture, and somehow you understand them. A woman crouched behind a low table waves you over. She's surrounded by small baskets of materials, feathers, powdered resin, dried petals, and tiny lengths of copper wire. You think for a moment you've stumbled upon an apothecary, but no, she's a pillow alchemist. I make sleep, she says, in the same tone someone might say I bake bread. Her name is. Her bracelets jingle like lazy bells as she scoops ingredients into a tiny clay jar and stirs them with a twig. This is your introduction to dream stuffing, not the edible kind, though it smells faintly of cardamom. These are mixtures used to line ceremonial or personal pillows, carefully selected for their spiritual resonance. Smell is the bridge between this world and the soft one, she explains. Choose badly and your dreams wander too far. A historical fact. While most Egyptian headdresses were wooden, wealthy sleepers sometimes paired them with small linen rolls, loosely stuffed with herbs or crushed lotus petals. These were not designed for comfort so much as for intention, helping the sleeper attract prophetic dreams or repel nightmares or simply drift away faster. An obscure cultural tidbit. Some embalmers inserted dream sachets into the wrappings of the deceased, small bundles of herbs and instructions for navigating the afterlife, like travel snacks for the soul. One recorded sachet contained myrrh, blue cornflower, and a tiny note reading, "If you meet a lion, speak gently." Historians still debate whether dream stuffing was based on genuine tradition, or if pillow sellers started adding scents as a sales tactic to justify charging a few more debens. Lets you mix your own blend. You choose crushed mint for clarity, rose petals for memory, and a few flakes of cedar bark for protection. She bundles it in linen and ties it with red thread. "Sleep with this under your robe," she says, "not close to your head. Let the dreams find you, not the other way around." You carry it carefully like a message in a bottle. Maybe that's exactly what it is. As you leave the market, a young boy dashes past with a bundle of palm leaves and shouts, "I'm late for pillow school." You blink, pillow school. You follow him down an alley and arrive, curious, unsure, but welcomed by a gate carved with symbols of rest. A closed eye, a feather, and a reed pen. Inside, a handful of students sit cross-legged around an elder named. They're sketching shapes on clay shards, measuring lengths of wood with string, debating the difference between comfortably sacred and sacred but terrible for posture. You learn that this is an atelier, an informal guild where children of artisans are taught not just how to make pillows, but how to listen to the dreams that come after. A historical fact: though formal education in ancient Egypt focused on scribes, religious rites, and law, trade skills were passed through tightly knit guilds and households. Some pillow makers were multi-generational, with designs and techniques passed down alongside stories and blessings. An obscure cultural tidbit: one master craftsman in Memphis reportedly left his apprentices a scroll titled The 7 Fatal Pillow Mistakes, including too high, too sharp, carved while angry, and resembles mother-in-law. Historians still debate whether pillow-making guilds had formal initiation rituals, or just really long tea breaks with strong opinions. You sit beside the students and watch. One girl, maybe 10 years old, proudly presents her design, a headdress shaped like a moon with tiny holes to let incense smoke curl through as you sleep. "That's a sleep lantern," says, "it glows in the dark of dreams." "So the girl beams, you beam." There's nothing else to say. It's near dusk again. The kind of dusk that seems to last longer, like the day isn't ready to let go. You've wandered back toward the banks of the Nile, where a wide dock stretches lazily into the water. Boats bob softly. Papyrus reeds whisper secrets to each other in a language no one has bothered to translate. A small crowd has gathered, quiet, reverent, dressed in linen robes dyed in shades of earth and sky. They're here for the river rest offering, a ceremonial moment when pillow makers, old and young, float a handful of their creations downstream. No grand ceremony, no drums, just hands placing headrests, some miniature, some full-sized, onto simple reed rafts lined with petals and salt. A goodbye to another season of. You're handed one too, a modest wooden ark, unpainted but beautifully balanced. It smells faintly of frankincense and warm hands. A tag on it reads, "For the dreamer who still hasn't woken up." You kneel and release it onto the water. The raft sways for a moment, unsure, then begins drifting slowly, quietly toward the west. A historical fact: the western side of the Nile, associated with the setting sun, was often symbolically tied to rest, death, and dreams. Ceremonies like these were small, local acts of gratitude and letting go, aligning craftsmanship with the natural rhythm of day and night. An obscure cultural tidbit. Some river offerings included personal confessions etched into the wood, secrets carved small and hidden, trusting the river to keep them. One recovered headdress read, "I love her still, but she dreams of another." Historians still debate whether these ceremonies were widespread, or just practiced by eccentric pillow enthusiasts with strong feelings about spiritual buoyancy. As the crowd begins to hum, a low, winding melody, no words, just breath. A lullaby older than language, you hum too. You don't know how you know it, but your chest remembers the notes before your mind does. As a girl beside you turns and whispers, each pillow carries a piece of someone's sleep. That's why we let them go. You can't hold every dream forever. You nod, swallowing a little lump of something soft and quiet in your throat. The river glows gold. Well, the sky dims. And you realize that in a world obsessed with productivity, you have found a corner of history where rest was the most sacred offering of all. You lie down near the reeds, your satchel beneath your head. Not comfortable, not symmetrical, but right. Above you, stars blink like curious eyelids. You drift again, not into dreams this time, but into stillness. And the pillow beneath your neck, that strange arc of wood carved in forgotten hands, finally feels like home. The night stretches long, and you sleep like a stone wrapped in silk, cool, undisturbed, and vaguely aware that the stars have changed position at least twice. You wake slowly. Not with a start, but with a kind of sideways glide, as if returning from a conversation with the moon you don't quite remember. The Nile whispers beside you, gentle and timeless. Even the frogs seem quieter this morning, as though recognizing that some dreams are still finishing their last scene. You sit up and stretch beneath the still blue sky, the linen of your robe wrinkled like a scroll hastily folded. A boat glides past in the distance, just a small one manned by an old with a beard like river moss. He nods, you nod back. The moment passes like a cloud, no need for words. Back in the artisan quarter, you find the streets still damp from morning. Merchants toss buckets across stone alleys, sweeping away the last echoes of night. Children chase a cloth ball, their laughter the only thing loud enough to wake the dust. You duck into a shadowed corner where you hadn't noticed a shop before. The sign above the door is carved with a single word, whisper. Inside, the air is thick with cedar and soft oils. A woman sits cross-legged on the floor, stitching something so intricate you can't tell if it's embroidery or a secret map. Her name is, she is a maker of dream veils, thin linen cloths stretched across headdresses like hammocks, designed to catch the last thoughts of the day before sleep pulls you under. We wear veils in life, she says, so why not offer one to the head? Today's historical fact. While not commonly depicted in tomb art, textile fragments found in domestic burials suggest that some Egyptians layered fabric over or beneath their wooden headdresses, likely for ritual, comfort, or as a base for essential oils thought to aid dream clarity. An obscure cultural tidbit. Some dream veils were rumored to capture specific memories if slept on correctly. In one late scroll, a woman claims to have recovered the name of her childhood pet, an ibis named after 3 nights sleeping on a veil sewn during moonrise. Historians still debate whether this was a spiritual technique or the result of deeply persuasive marketing from linen vendors with active imaginations. It invites you to try one. She hands you a strip of fabric so light it seems woven from wind. It's embroidered with tiny threads in the shape of spirals, fish, and a single open eye. Lie down, she says, but only if you're not afraid to remember things you didn't know you forgot. You do. The veil cradles the back of your neck. The wooden headrest remains firm, but now it speaks less sternly. The veil softens the conversation between body and dream. You don't fall asleep, not fully. Instead, you drift in of memories, half-formed thoughts, forgotten smiles, a joke someone told you in childhood. For a moment, you think you hear your own voice whispering back to you. When you sit up again is gone. Just the room, the scent of cedar, and a small stitched phrase on the edge of the veil remain. What you forget is not lost. It's simply waiting. You carry that line with you as you leave, tucked quietly into the lining of your thoughts. As outside, Thebes is waking faster now. The hammering of new construction, the chants from a nearby rooftop altar, a fishmonger arguing passionately with a goat. The usual. And yet, everything feels slightly slower, as if the world respects that you've been elsewhere for a while. And that maybe, just maybe, you brought something back with you. How today feels different. Not louder, not brighter, just heavier in its silence. As though the city knows it's time to remember something old. Something weighty. You follow the flow of people heading north toward the western cliffs where tombs are carved like punctuation marks into the belly of stone. Not the pharaoh's tombs, not the golden crypts you hear about in myths. These are smaller, personal, carved by families for families. And today, one will be opened. The pillow makers walk together, heads covered in pale linen, tools in hand. They do not speak. This is not a moment for showing off curves or finishes. This is about placement, the final act of. The deceased, a woman named, was a midwife and a poet. She requested a simple headrest. Acacia wood, unpainted, carved with a dove on one side and a line of verse on the other. Let me sleep as I held them, gentle, unhurried, whole. You walk with them, a respectful observer. The tomb is opened with slow ceremony. Inside, the room smells of dust, salt, and time. The walls are painted with scenes from her life, delivering bobbies, writing under palm trees, laughing beside a garden. You feel you know her already. The headrest is placed beneath her head by her granddaughter, a girl no older than 12. She wipes her eyes with the back of her hand and says softly, "Sleep well, grandmother. I'll dream the ones you didn't finish." A historical fact. The placement of the headrest in burial rites was an act both practical and sacred, meant to elevate the head as a symbol of dignity and spiritual awareness. Many tombs show depictions of sleepers propped on their headrests, eyes closed, arms crossed, prepared for what came next. As obscure cultural tidbit, some tomb headrests had miniature carvings inside their base, a secret only the dead would know. Messages like "You are loved" or "Look for me in the river breeze," hidden away as private comforts in the long dark. Historians still debate whether these intimate inscriptions were common practice or rare expressions of particularly poetic families. As outside the tomb, the family sings a soft farewell. No wailing, no percussion. Just a single verse repeated again and again like a heartbeat. You sit on a stone nearby and close your eyes. Not to sleep, but to let the feeling settle. The sense that something important has just been honored, not just a life but a philosophy. That rest isn't an ending, it's a passage. A voice beside you from the veil shop sits beside you again. She's brought a pot of warm spiced beer and 2 cups. She pours without speaking and you drink. Though the taste is strange but grounding. Notes of honey, cinnamon, and something like memory. You've learned a lot about pillows, she says finally, but there's one thing left. You glance over, eyebrows raised. Oh, they're not for sleep, she says, not really. Oh, you wait. They're for trust. You have to trust the world enough to lay your head down, to be soft, to not know what's next. She smiles gently, stands, and walks off. And you sit there on the cliffside of an ancient city, watching the sun slip lower, holding a cup of fatting warmth and a mind full of wooden arches and whispered dreams. Oh, you'd trust the next breath. Oh, you'd trust the next blink. And slowly you rise. And begin the walk home. You walk home slowly. The sun, having tucked itself behind the cliffs, spills the last of its light like melted copper onto the alley stones. Thebes is now that soft middle place, not fully asleep, not fully awake. Children still call to one another across rooftops. Lanterns flicker into being like stars catching fire closer to the ground. You pass through a narrow passage between houses, where the air is thick with roasted lentils, oil, and evening prayers. Somewhere a woman sings as she washes her husband's feet, and you hear her laughter echo through clay walls. Sleep in this city is not just something you do. It's something shared, prepared for like a meal or a song. You turn a corner and find yourself back where this all began, the linen workshop. It's inside, the loom beats slower tonight. Not a full day's labor, just the soft rhythm of one woman finishing a final thread. She's alone. You remember her, the eldest weaver of the pillow linens. Her back is than it has any right to be, her fingers delicate and deliberate. She doesn't stop when you enter. She doesn't need to. You sit quietly on a reed mat, letting the sound of shuttle and string wash over you. Each pass of the loom is a heartbeat, each pull a breath. Tonight she's weaving a cover for a headdress commissioned by a priestess of Hathor. The linen is pale blue, dyed with indigo and cooled under moonlight. She adds embroidered glyphs, tiny phrases meant to guard the neck, protect the soul, and confuse any wandering spirits who try to peek at your dreams. Now, tonight's historical fact. Some ancient pillow linens were believed to be more than cloth, they were barriers. Protective layers against metaphysical interference. Specific weavers were sought out for their dream-stitching abilities, and their works were paid for with silver rings or jars of date syrup, both considered more valuable than gold in certain regions. As obscure cultural tidbit, some pillow linens came with riddles sewn into the hem, not jokes but genuine puzzles. A sleeping mind, they believed, might unravel a riddle subconsciously and wake with clarity. One preserved linen contains the phrase, "What has no shape but bends all things?" Answer, sleep, or possibly time, scholars argue. The pillow presumably doesn't care. Historians still debate whether the glyphs woven into linen were standardized magical inscriptions, or whether weavers invented their own, trusted more by tradition than theology. Finishes the final stitch, ties a red thread through a loop and breathes on it. Just once. A soft exhale, like closing the door on a day. She turns to you then, offering the cloth with both hands. You don't know what to say, so you bow your head. She doesn't respond. Just gestures toward a small cushion in the corner. You lie down. The linen is warm, faintly scented with crushed chamomile and thread oil. And though your head still rests on wood, it feels different now. Less like support, more like surrender. When you wake, there's no sunrise yet, just the deep, velvety blue that comes before the world stretches its limbs. You're wrapped in the scent of woven flax, smoke, and something faintly like oranges. There's a robe around your shoulders that you didn't put on, and your hair has been gently braided by someone with quiet hands. You leave the workshop just as a rooster makes a half-hearted attempt at being relevant. The street is empty except for a boy scribbling something on a wall with a piece of coal. You glance as you pass. It reads, "The gods sleep too." While you nod in agreement. You walk uphill now toward the high terraces near the Temple District. There above the rooftops, Thebes lies wide and peaceful beneath you, its alleys like veins, its lights like dreams that haven't yet ended. From here, you can see the Nile curve away like a ribbon, disappearing into silence. At the top of the hill is an old stone bench, smooth from generations of thinking. A cat is already seated on one side. You sit on the other. It blinks slowly as if to say, "Took you long enough." From this height, the rooftops of Thebes seem to float. You imagine everyone below resting their heads on wood, on linen, on arms folded across full stomachs. You imagine the collective sigh of a city giving itself permission to pause. Now you reach into your satchel and pull out your little collection. A carved sleep token from, a folded veil from, a turquoise dust from the embalmer's workshop. The mini headdress with return carved into its base. Each one small, each one soft with meaning. You set them beside you, like friends you don't need to speak to. A historical fact. In some Egyptian households, there existed sleep altars. tiny household shrines not to a god but to the idea of sleep itself. These were kept near beds or under mats, with small tokens, inscriptions, and even drawings of pillows offered as daily gestures of gratitude for rest and safe dreaming. This obscure cultural tidbit, one early papyrus contains a line that reads, "Let me rest like a boat that has found its shore." It's thought to be part of a longer lullaby, one that perhaps only a few scribes remembered and sang softly to their own children before the words were lost to sand. Historians still debate whether sleep was treated as a religious rite because it mirrored death, or because it brought people closer to something divine without the burden of comprehension. Now you sit with these thoughts, not analyzing them, just letting them breathe beside you. Though the cat stretches and leaves, you remain. Below you, a woman lights an oil lamp on her windowsill. Another brushes her husband's hair. Someone snores gently beneath a reed mat while a tiny dog guards their sandals. And all across the city, pillows cradle not just heads but hopes, worries, prayers, wishes. Now you smile to yourself, not because you've discovered some great truth, but because finally you're beginning to understand. In ancient Egypt, sleep wasn't just a necessity. It was a practice, a ritual, an offering, not just to the gods, but to the self. And as you rise, dust the stone from your robe and head home once more, you find you are walking slower. No, not from weariness, but because this city, its softness, its wisdom, its wooden arches and quiet thread-counted dreams, has taught you one thing above all. That the most sacred thing you can place on an altar is your own rested head. You return to the sleep house as twilight rolls in like a slow tide. The air carries the scent of cracked wheat, smoke, and cooling stone. A group of girls sings as they sweep the steps, an old lullaby that might once have been a prayer or a joke. The kind of song you hum when you don't want to wake the dust. Inside, the light is low, golden, diffused through stretched linen windows dyed with saffron and ash. You recognize the mats, the rows of headrests arranged like offerings. The sleepy cat now sprawled in front of the hearth with one paw resting dramatically on its own tail like a self-serious poet. You sit by the fire. Tonight, the keeper of the house, a man named, offers you a warm bowl of lentils and a thick square of barley bread. He doesn't ask where you've been, he just nods like someone who's watched 100 journeys arrive back home. "I want to hear the old story," he asks. So you nod, and begins not with drama, not with flair, but with the kind of voice that has learned to speak just above the hum of thought. "There was once a carpenter who carved a headrest for his beloved," he says, "but she died before it could be used. So he placed it beneath his own head every night and whispered her name into the wood until it began to echo it back." You glance toward the shelves of headrests. One of them, smooth and pale, seems to vibrate ever so slightly in the firelight. He continues, "And after he died, their son slept on it, then his daughter. and on until the wood became soft with voices. And when no one remained, the pillow simply vanished, taken back by the gods who needed something to dream on. A historical fact: some families passed down their headrests through generations, not just as heirlooms but as memory keepers. Small etchings were added over time, names, dates, symbols of major life events. Some even bore quiet dents from foreheads pressed there during grief or contemplation. As obscure cultural tidbit, certain ancient Egyptian households believed the pillow could become tuned to a person. If you tried to sleep on someone else's headrest without permission, you'd have unsettled dreams or wake feeling lost. To prevent this, pillows were often wrapped in marked cloths when not in use, essentially the ancient version of a do not disturb sign. Historians still debate whether this tuning was spiritual, psychological, or just a clever way to keep younger siblings from stealing your pillow. He leans back and sips from a clay cup of warm spiced water. They say sleep isn't rest, he murmurs. It's rehearsal for memory, for grief, for whatever comes next. You finish your meal and thank him. He nods again and adds, choose any headrest tonight. They'll all remember you now. You make your way to a quiet corner of the room where the woven mats are freshly dusted and still faintly warm. You scan the headrests. One catches your eye, a simple arc of dark sycamore carved with faint concentric rings like ripples in water. No adornment, no inscription. Just balances. You lie back onto it. It holds your head like a hand might, firm, unfussy, certain. And you breathe, not a deep breath, just enough. Enough to be reminded that you are held, and that the night is long, and that dreams are not obligations, they're gifts. This time your sleep feels like silk falling through water. Not fast, not slow, just endless, smooth, and unbothered. You wake to soft footsteps and the scent of pomegranate husks burning in the hearth, an offering to the gods of calm mornings. The cat is gone. A new one has taken its place. Possibly the same one. Possibly a different one with equally disdainful posture. You don't ask. Outside, Thebes stretches and yawns. You walk to the doorway and lean against the wooden frame, watching the sun rise like a slow exhale across the Nile. Fishermen uncoil their nets. Bakers slap dough into ovens. A woman with a singing bowl calls to the birds and throws breadcrumbs shaped like tiny spirals. You're not ready to leave, but something inside you says it's time to move. So you do. You make your way to the temple of the goddess of writing, knowledge, and not the loudest temple nor the grandest, but quiet, clean, built from limestone that holds shadows like stories. Inside, you find scribes copying texts onto fresh papyrus. One young man is writing out a dream report in 3 columns, symbols for what happened, what it might mean, and how to prevent it from happening again. You glance over his shoulder. A crocodile danced near my bed and asked about taxes. In interpretation, an unexpected visitor will ask for something you don't have. A solution: sleep facing south for the next 3 nights. The scribe looks up and grins. Dreams aren't puzzles, he says. They're letters from a part of you that doesn't use language. You nod, even though you don't quite understand. He hands you a blank scroll. Write ones. You hesitate, but then you write. A headdress carved from laughter. A dream that smelled like myrrh. I woke holding a name I'd never heard, but knew. He reads it, then stamps the corner with a small red glyph. A pillow with wings. A historical fact. Some temples kept dream scrolls open to the public, collections of people's dreams written anonymously and interpreted by rotating priests. These scrolls weren't archived. Instead, they were burned at month's end, the smoke sent as messages to the gods. The fire was said to edit for clarity. An obscure cultural tidbit. There were dream competitions, too, often during festival nights. Participants would sleep in communal temples, and the next day the best dream was declared a gift from the gods. Winners received amulets, wine, and bragging rights for a month. One champion dream reportedly involved a hippo giving legal advice to a falcon. Now, historians still debate whether these festivals were serious religious rites or just a good excuse to nap in public and drink afterward. Before you leave the temple, the head priestess gives you a tiny ink pot carved from alabaster. Use it for recording the dreams you don't want to forget, she says, or the ones you need help remembering. You tuck it into your satchel. The weight feels right. Back on the street, Thebes is humming again. Someone is playing a reed flute from a rooftop. Two children run past, one holding a miniature pillow carved from bread. You laugh before you can stop yourself. And then you see it on a wall near the gate to the artisan district. A phrase painted in dark red pigment, barely visible under the sun. Let the pillow remember what you cannot. You pause. You breathe. You begin walking again. And this time, it feels like you're floating just above the stones. And as if your head just slightly has already begun to rest. You find yourself wandering again, not lost, not searching, just letting your feet decide the day's rhythm. The morning sun lays itself gently across the rooftops like a sleeping cat, stretching just enough to warm the clay but not enough to wake the world fully. Birds gossip overhead. A distant flute spills lazy notes over the alley walls. Thebes is awake but in no rush. You pass by the incense district, where vendors fan trails of cinnamon smoke toward passing priests. The air here smells like temples and market gossip and yesterday's spices. A woman squats on a low stool, shaping tiny pyramids out of resin and honey. She sprinkles dried lavender over one and catches your eye. This one is for the restless. You nod in appreciation but keep walking. Farther ahead, a narrow lane opens into a courtyard shaded by pomegranate trees. A stone trough bubbles with spring water, cool, faintly metallic. You dip your fingers in and sit beside a man etching something into a flat slab. The sound of his stylus against limestone is soft but deliberate. His name is, and he is a dream inscriber. He carves people's dreams into stone, not the grand ones meant for tombs, but the small, strange, personal ones. The ones too delicate for papyrus, too odd for storytelling. I don't write them to last forever, he says. Only long enough for people to let them go. Now, today's historical fact. In some Egyptian temples, particularly those connected with healing cults like that of Imhotep, visitors would sleep overnight in a ritual known as incubation. Upon waking, they would describe their dreams to a priest, who would record them and interpret their meaning. These dream accounts were sometimes etched onto temple walls as anonymous records of divine encounters. This obscure cultural tidbit. Some households kept dream jars, clay vessels with slips of linen or stone tokens inside, each etched with a word from a remembered dream. When the jar was full, it would be sealed and buried in the home's courtyard as a symbolic offering or to quiet the memory. Historians still debate whether these jars were genuinely spiritual or simply a clever way to declutter the subconscious. He hands you a shard of limestone and a stylus. Etch a word, he says. Only one, the one you keep waking up with. Now you hesitate, then carve slowly, carefully. Still, he nods as if that explains everything. You watch him etch another word on a new slab feather. He does it without looking. You wonder how many words he's given away over the years. How many people have walked lighter afterward? Before you leave, he hands you a sliver of stone tied with reed. On it, a blank space. Not everything has to be named right away, he says. I'll use a slip it into your pouch. The street feels quieter now, as though your thoughts have decided to walk beside you instead of ahead. You pass the temple garden, where women are crushing lotus petals for perfume and arranging garlands to be worn during the night of soft eyes. A quiet festival for thanking the gods of sleep and forgiveness. Tonight, you learn, is that night. And all of Thebes is preparing to lie down together. As evening approaches, the city transforms. Not in color, not really, but in texture. The light becomes silk. The streets hum with the soft chaos of preparation. Homes are swept with slow brooms. Faces are gently washed. Pillows, wooden, linen-wrapped, scent-stuffed, and spell-carved, are fluffed like sacred relics. As every rooftop becomes a bed. As every courtyard a lullaby. You make your way to the Garden of Dreams, a quiet space near the riverbank usually reserved for scholars and old men who grown bored of arguing. Tonight, it is open to all. People lie on mats woven from golden reeds, some alone, some in pairs, some in clusters of 3 or 4 heads resting together like petals of the same flower. A low fire burns in the center, surrounded by bowls of date wine and bowls of. Now the veil maker waves you over. She's holding a folded cloth and a small jar of ink. Tonight we write nothing, she says, we just sleep. But first we choose a dream. She gives you the cloth. On it, stitched in red thread, are 3 symbols. Shut the door. Shut the boat. Close an eye. You pick one, she says, just one. That's where your dream will go. You trace the boat. She smiles. A historical fact. During certain feast nights, particularly the Festival of Hathor and later the Feast of Citizens, were encouraged to sleep outdoors in groups, believing the open sky would purify their thoughts and allow divine dreams to enter unfiltered. Priests and artisans sometimes planted dream seeds, objects, symbols, or songs intended to gently steer the direction of sleep. An obscure cultural tidbit. Some people tucked small mirrors beneath their mats, hoping dreams would reflect back to them the next night. A few believed the mirror could trap an especially good dream so it could be re-entered. Historians still debate whether these traditions were common across Egypt or regional flourishes tied to local temple customs. Either way, the result was the same. People gathered, lay down, and slept together, not to escape the world, but to meet it more softly. You lie on your mat beside, and who snores instantly? A woman hums a soft tone across the fire. It's not a song, it's just a note held like breath. Others join. A single, continuous harmony held by many voices until it feels like the earth itself is breathing. You rest your head on your chosen headrest, one carved in the shape of a wave, gifted to you by a scribe whose name you never caught. It holds your skull like it remembers its shape already. As above, the stars wink open one by one. You think of all the heads resting on wood across this city. You think of the carved spells, the embroidered wishes, the herbs that speak in scent instead of sound. And then, without permission, your breath deepens. The fire crackles once, your eyes close. And you begin to drift. Not downward, not upward. As outward. Toward the boat. Toward the dream. Toward whatever waits in the darkness with open arms and the patience of stone. The boat arrives before the dream does. It is not a grand barge with sails like wings, nor is it one of the small papyrus crafts you've seen children shape from river reeds. No, this boat floats in a space not entirely made of water, nor entirely made of thought. It rocks gently beneath you, though you don't remember boarding it. The oars do not move. The river does not pull. And yet, onward you go past dark silhouettes of cities that may not exist, beneath stars that hum instead of twinkle, and over waters that remember things. You are not alone in the boats. Beside you sits a man made of linen and time. His face is drawn in soft, unfinished lines, as if he's still being remembered. He holds a headrest in his lap, carved from dark ebony, inlaid with lapis lazuli and ivory so pale it glows. This belonged to my mother, he says. He doesn't explain how or why he's here, and you don't ask. That's the way of dreams. Some visitors arrive bearing riddles, others arrive bearing chairs. Her dreams were so loud they needed a frame, he adds. This pillow quieted them. You reach out and touch the carved surface. It hums faintly, like breath, like history, like a lullaby half swallowed by silence. The boat glides under an archway of stars shaped like open eyes. They blink slowly as you pass, and for a moment you feel you are being read. Not judged, just understood. A historical fact. In ancient Egyptian belief, the journey through sleep mirrored the journey through the underworld. Just as the sun god Ra traveled through darkness each night, so did the soul wander during dreams. Many rituals, especially those tied to headrests and linens, were designed to make that nightly passage smoother. An obscure cultural tidbit. Some priests trained specifically to guide others in their dreams. These sleep priests, called, or knowers of mysteries, would sit beside a sleeping person and whisper incantations timed with the breath, attempting to steer their dream toward clarity, healing, or even prophecy. And historians still debate whether these practices were truly dream control, or elaborate forms of therapy before therapy had a name. Back on the boat, the man offers you the headrest. "Oh, it remembers," he says, "even if I don't." "Oh, you take it, hold it in your hands." "Oh, it's heavier than it looks." Suddenly, the water beneath you grows still, so still that it becomes reflective. You see your face gently rippling with a wind that isn't there. But as the ripples settle, you see not just your face, but behind you, a procession of headrests floating on small reed boats, all drifting in your wake. Some you recognize, some you don't. Though the boat stops, though the man rises, nods, and steps into the water, he doesn't sink. He simply walks into the dark and disappears. While you remain, though the headrest in your lap pulses once, like a heartbeat or a drum played very far away. Then the dream folds inward, like cloth being packed for travel. While you sleep inside your own sleep. And when you wake, if you wake, you will feel the weight of something old and known. While you wake before your eyes opens. You feel the curve of the wooden headrest beneath your neck before you feel your fingers or remember your name. The linen mat beneath you is warm with the memory of shared sleep, and the early morning breeze smells faintly of hibiscus and river mist. All around you, the city breathes. Thebes at dawn feels like the inside of a held breath. Streets still wet from dew. Rooftops littered with the dreams of cats. Fires being stoked in clay ovens where bread will soon rise like sleepy thoughts. People stir, stretch, whisper good mornings. But no one speaks loudly, not yet. You roll onto your side, placing your carved, wave-shaped headrest beside you like a stone relic, and watch as a woman with dark curls sprinkles powdered petals into a bowl of oil. She dips her fingers into it, then dabs the mixture on a row of headrests lined on a cloth like sleeping infants. She hums as she works. While you ask her name, "Maya," she says, "I wake the pillows." While you don't question it, Maya explains that headrests, especially those used during rituals like the Night of Soft Eyes, must be cleansed after use. Not just wiped or polished but thanked. They are, after all, vessels of memory. Even wood can get tired, she says. Especially wood that listens. A historical fact. Ancient Egyptians believed that objects used in sacred rites, particularly those that touched the head, absorbed spiritual residue. After important ceremonies or nights of incubation, these items were ritually purified with oil, incense, or even a moment of silence. The same practice was applied to knives used in birth, spoons used in healing, and yes, headrests used in dreaming. An obscure cultural tidbit: some pillow artisans refused to reuse wood from old headrests, fearing they'd inherit someone else's sorrow. Others, however, sought out ancient wood, especially from shipwrecks or desert trees struck by lightning, believing it held dream stories too powerful to lose. Historians still debate whether this belief in emotional residue was universal, or a localized superstition passed down by especially poetic families. Maya hands you a cloth and a small bowl. You join her in silence, dabbing the mixture into the grooves of a lion pod headrest, then onto one shaped like a vulture's wing. The scent rises, floral, earthy, sweet with sleep. Each pillow, each carved curve, feels less like a thing, and more like a person you once knew well but hadn't seen in years. When you're done, Maya places a small feather into your palm. To dust away anything that followed you out of your dream, she says, almost apologetically. You tuck it into your pouch, now full of strange kindnesses. The city is fully awake now. The laughter is louder. The pots clang. The scribes shout from windows about missed appointments and misplaced scrolls. But still, you walk quietly. You feel like someone still half-wrapped in linen. You pass who's already carving again and who's hanging fresh veils to dry on a line, is back in his square etching someone's dream about bees into limestone, and waves from the doorway of the sleep house already preparing mats for tonight. Oh, it's a new day in Thebes. Oh, and yet, you know you're not quite done dreamings. There's more wood to touch, more silence to hear, more sleep to shape. You'd turn a corner and walk into the next breath of the city. You walk, but not like before. Not with questions in your pocket or curiosity tugging at your heels. Now you walk like someone who belongs here. Someone who knows the rhythm of the breeze against linen, the weight of a carved curve in the palm, the hush of wood that has held generations of heads and carried dreams like cargo. The Thebes too walks with you now, not as a guide but as a companion. You make your way past the riverfront again, where women are laying reeds in bundles. Today they're binding them with dyed cord to weave sleeping mats for newlyweds. Each mat is patterned with protective glyphs: twin fish for unity, a ladder for communication, and a small eye, closed, of course, for peaceful sleep. A boy named runs up to you barefoot, holding a headrest that's clearly too heavy for his arms. It's carved from dark tamarisk and one side is shaped like a jackal's ear. I made it for my uncle, he says, grinning. He snores like war drums. I hope the jackal scares the sound out of him. You ruffle his hair. He drops the headrest on your foot and runs off laughing. Now, today's historical fact. In some communities, gifting a headrest was considered a sacred rite of passage. Young artisans often carved their first full headrest for a relative, a teacher, or someone who had shaped their early dreams. These were not always beautiful, but they were cherished, frequently buried with the recipient to ensure the bond continued in the afterlife. An obscure cultural tidbit: some gifted headrests included carved, teasing spells, gentle insults meant to amuse and protect. One surviving example reads, "May you sleep better than you listen." Another says, "This pillow supports more than your neck, it carries your laziness too." Now, historians still debate whether these were meant in jest, or were simply socially acceptable forms of honesty wrapped in wood. You carries gift back to the artisan square, placing it beside a pile of in-progress works. A young girl eyes it and says, "The jackal ear is too big." You tell her it's perfect. She rolls her eyes, but you see the smile tugging at her cheek. You wander onward deeper into the southern quarter, where the sound of hammers gives way to something softer: chanting. A low, slow call, like someone singing to the earth beneath their feet. You follow the sound to a shaded grove surrounded by fig trees, where a group of older artisans sit in a circle, each with a headrest in their lap. They are sanding, oiling, murmuring to their work, not prayers exactly, more like promises. Now this is the circle of the last carvers. Their hands tremble, but their tools do not. They speak rarely, but their headrests are considered the finest in the city, prized not for decoration but for something deeper: balance, weight, silence. Now you sit beside them without a word. As a man named passes you a block of wood. "No one sleeps forever," he says, "but the good ones leave room for others to rest in their dreams." Now you don't understand it, not fully. But your hands begin to move anyway. The wood is warm from the sun and smells of rain long gone. It's sycamore, soft enough to carve with a whisper, sturdy enough to cradle regret. Now you let your fingers find the curve. Not a line you think about, just one that comes. Your thumb traces the shape again and again until the wood begins to remember it. The carvers around you do not interrupt. Occasionally, one of them hums. One sharpens a chisel with deliberate slowness. Another oils the surface of his piece, massaging the grain like he's waking up something ancient. You are not in a workshop. You are in a temple made of times. And hours pass without names. The sun slips behind the grove. A soft breeze drags laughter across the grass, and someone nearby mutters, "That one's too round. Dreams will roll off." Now you adjust the line just slightly. A historical fact: ancient carvers sometimes began their training not with tools but with stillness. For weeks, apprentices would be told to sit beside sleeping elders and observe the rhythm of their breath, the angle of their neck, the way their head tilted when peace was achieved. Only after understanding sleep would they be handed wood. An obscure cultural tidbit: some believed that the best pillows were not carved but revealed. That inside every block of wood was a perfect headdress waiting to be discovered, and the carver's job was simply to listen with their hands. These philosophies were passed in riddles, not instruction. One master reportedly told a student, "Don't shape the dream, carve the silence it wants to rest in." Historians still debate whether this was spiritual wisdom or a patient artisan's way of avoiding giving direct answers. You finish your piece just as the sky turns from gold to violet. Oh, it's not a perfect. Oh, it doesn't need to be. The arch of it holds the curve of your own neck, though you never measured it. The base is etched with a soft spiral, a symbol you've seen carved into temple walls, into linen hems, into sand drawn by children. Now you place it on the grass before you. One of the elder carvers, a woman with a voice like cracked papyrus, nods. "Let it dry in moonlight," she says. "Let it hear the stars." You sit with your creation as night rises. The city breathes below you, gentle and steady. The moon rises over Thebes, soft as cotton, and the shadows line toward you like stories waiting for their turn. You lie back beside your new pillow, not on it, just near. You let your hand rest on its side, like one friend reaching for another. The stars blink above. The wood is still warm. And for the first time, you begin to understand why they carved pillows from trees. Because trees remember how to sway with the wind. Because they never rush. Because they grow slowly, in silence, and carry generations in rings you can only see if you take the time to count. You close your eyes and sleep like something returning home. You dream, but not with pictures. You dream in textures, sun-warmed sycamore, soft reed mats, linen rubbed smooth by 1,000 washes. You dream in breath, the slow inhale of someone sleeping 2 rooms away, the exhale of a fig tree bending toward moonlight. You dream in echoes, laughter heard from behind clay walls, footsteps down alleys you'll never walk again. When you open your eyes, the sky is still bruised with twilight. The stars are retreating slowly, like polite visitors who don't want to be the last to leave. Your hand is still resting on the headdress you carved. It's dry now. Cool. So solid. But when you lift it into your lap, it feels lighter. You walk through the grove while the city still sleeps, headdressed cradled like a child's bowl, careful not to spill the silence still clinging to its edges. At the bottom of the slope, a wide stone bench overlooks the Nile. The water looks silver. The kind of silver that's earned its calm. You sit and place the headdress beside you. Not to admire it. Just so it can look at the river, too. The woman approaches. She is older than Thebes itself, or at least it feels that way. Her face is folded like a worn linen and her eyes are so calm you almost forget they're watching you. She doesn't introduce herself. She simply sits. You're carrying less now, she says, but what you carry is quieter. You nod, she nods back, that's enough. She reaches into a reed basket and pulls out a scroll, not long, not ornate, just a simple roll of papyrus tied with black thread. They used to write lullabies on these, she says, but not for children, for pillows. While you blink, she continues. Pillows that were too restless. Wood remembers trees and trees remember storms. Sometimes they needed reassurance. So she unties the scroll, inside in faint ink. Close your thoughts now. Close the door behind them. Only bring in what wants to sleep beside you. A historical fact. A collection of ancient Egyptian texts now referred to as the household scrolls includes fragments of what may have been poetic instructions for preparing domestic spaces for sleep. These include invocations to quiet the room, soft repetitions of calming words, and even dialogues addressed to bedding and furniture. Scholars are still debating whether these were rituals or just exceptionally lyrical housekeeping routines. An obscure cultural tidbit. In one scroll, there's a passage where a headrest is referred to as the shoulder of the house. In others, they are spoken to directly. Guard my neck from burdens, one line says. Another simply reads, hold me and I'll forget. Historians still debate whether these writings reflect religious belief or a society that simply took the art of rest more seriously than we do today. The old woman rolls the scroll back up and tucks it into your headrest. It's yours now, she says. Don't read it again until you forget what it says. While you thank her. She waves the thanks away with a flick of her fingers and walks off, as if she was only ever there to deliver one line of a much older story. Now you sit on the bench until the first fisherman's oars break the surface of the river. You place the headrest on your shoulder, then walk back toward the waking city. You arrive back at the sleep house just as the bread boy yells too loudly for how early it is. The street smells like wheat and smoke and melted beeswax. You step through the doorway into the same room you first entered all those days ago. Though it feels like months, maybe years, maybe several lifetimes woven into one thread. The cat is there. Love, of course it is. You place your headrest on the shelf with the others. It doesn't stand out, that's what you like about it. It joins a quiet crowd of wood and curve and old spells and thumb-worn corners. You sit nearby not to watch it, but to share the room with it now that it's home. One of the apprentices walks past and glances at your piece. They don't say anything, but they pause. And then they nod. You stretch out on a mat and let your body loosen its grip on the day. You hear someone snoring faintly, someone whispering a morning blessing over their pillow, the creak of wood being reshaped, a kettle hissing like it has something important to say but is too tired to say it quickly. While you drift, not into sleep, into something more tender. Into a space between waking and dreaming, a hammock suspended between two thoughts, the kind of drifting that doesn't need an end. A historical fact. Among the lesser-known burial objects placed in tombs were dream scrolls, short inscriptions meant to be read aloud by the soul while traveling through the. These were not instructions like the Book of the Dead but gentle suggestions. Rest here, look for the white fig tree, do not follow the shouting bird. Some were even addressed directly to the pillow. Keep my thoughts from wandering too far. An obscure cultural tidbit. In one tomb, archaeologists found a headdress wrapped in a linen band with a single line embroidered repeatedly. Breathe slow, forget slower. Some believe it was a mantra. Others believe it was stitched by someone who simply didn't want their loved one to hurry anywhere, not even in the afterlife. Historians still debate whether these rituals were sacred or simply a reflection of people who deeply, profoundly loved sleep. You rise one last time that morning, carrying only the weight of your own breaths. You look at the shelf of headdresses, each one a name you never heard, a dream you never had, a life you never knew. You bow slightly. They deserve that. You step out into the city. And now, when people pass you on the street, they seem to walk a little slower around you. As if you carry a silence they don't want to interrupt. As if you've been somewhere they're not ready to go yet. You walk toward the river again, this time with no destination. Just a pace. Just a thought. Just the soft curve of a pillow's memory tucked quietly behind your eyes. By now, you no longer need to look for the pillow makers of Thebes. They simply appear. A young girl rolling linen across a courtyard stone, her hands brushing the fibers like they've done this in 100 lifetimes. A man reclining against a wall, whittling an invisible pattern into a half-finished arch of acacia, pausing not to rest but to listen. To the grain, to the wind, to whatever it is that sleeps just beneath the bark. You walk without asking. And the city opens around you, not like a map but like a poem. You visit a family compound tucked behind the olive market. You were told to come here. No name, just directions. Follow the scent of burnt honey and find the house with the black doorway. They'll be waiting. And they are. A woman meets you at the gate. Her arms are dusted with flour. Her face is lined with laughter. She waves you in like you're late, though you never agreed on a time. Is inside a quiet courtyard. One tree, one mat, one headrest. The headrest is ancient. Not beautiful, not polished. In fact, it looks like it barely survived its last dream. Cracked slightly at the edge, worn so smooth it reflects no light. On the bottom, a single glyph burned deep into the wood, a bird in flight, wing caught in a spiral. The woman gestures for you to sit. She begins her story. This belonged to my mother's mother's mother, she says. It has been passed down longer than anyone remembers, and no one knows who carved it. She tells you that every woman in her family has slept on this headdress the night before her wedding. Not the night of, the night before. So she remembers who she was before she became someone else's wife. Tonight it will be used again. Her daughter is inside preparing. You can hold it, she says. So you do. It's lighter than it looks, but heavy in a way that makes your fingers still. Like holding silence that has decided to stay. A historical fact. In some Egyptian households, particular objects, especially those tied to sleep, fertility, or transition, were passed down through the maternal line. These weren't just heirlooms, they were talismans of continuity. A pillow that had cradled many heads wasn't just a tool, it was an archive of rest. An obscure cultural tidbit. Some women stitched tiny bead pouches filled with herbs and fragments of old family linens, then tied them to ceremonial headdress on special occasions. These pouches were not for dreams, but for reminders, to carry fragments of their mother's sleep into their own. Historians still debate whether these were common customs or just the private rituals of certain domestic circles. But the patterns show up again and again in tombs and oral records. The handed-down headdress, the binding cloth, the whispered name of a grandmother never met but always remembered. You hand the headdress back to the woman's. She presses it to her chest once. Not out of sentiment, out of habit. Like someone who knows sleep is sacred, but memory is even more so. Evening again. Not night, not yet. The part of the day that exhales. The Thebes leans into it like an old friend. Shadows stretch, voices grow slower, doors creak open but don't close again. Children curl on mats before they've finished their stories. Cats blink into naps without warning. Someone begins humming an old tune beside a glowing lantern, and the song wanders across rooftops without ever arriving anywhere. You sit in your usual place now, by the edge of the river, where your shadow joins a long lineage of other quiet figures watching water do what water does best. Remember without holding. In your hands is your headdress. The one you carved. As it has dried fully now, the curve feels true. The grain has taken the oil beautifully. It smells like wood warmed by sunlight and worn by breaths. You've brought it here not for sleep, but for gratitude. Because here in Thebes, where gods dream in temples and bakers dream beside ovens and children dream of hippos made of bread, you've learned that the pillow is not the beginning of sleep. It's the keeper of it. The witness. The co-dreamer. You lie back, head resting on the wood you shaped with your own hands. It doesn't cradle you. It joins you. And in that soft moment, before the sky goes fully dark, you feel the dreams come. Not your dreams, but the ones waiting for you. You hear them in the wind, in the shifting reeds, in the tiny creaks of a city preparing to fall asleep. One dream wears the voice of the keeper of the sleep house, telling a story you almost remember. Another hums like threads weaving gently through your thoughts. You hear carving a word that doesn't exist yet. You feel snoring nearby, still clinging to the tail end of some grand adventure involving a bird and a festival. You feel every carver's hand, every weaver's sigh, every child's giggle, and every elder's whisper wrapped around your head. Not heavy, not loud, just present. A historical fact. In one lesser-known funerary spell, written not in a tomb but on the wall of a modest home, a family wrote, "May your rest be curved and clean. May your dreams find no corners. May your pillow be known to the gods." An obscure cultural tidbit. In a small graveyard south of Thebes, archaeologists found a collection of crude wooden headrests, each one etched not with names but with one repeating symbol, a half circle with 3 lines above it believed to mean rising sleep. Not just rest, becoming rest. Historians still debate what rising sleep means. So maybe it means to wake within the dream. Or maybe it means to go so gently into the night that the night itself leans forward to greet you. You smile. You close your eyes. And for now, there is no history. There is no Egypt. No carved wood. No names. No edge. Just a breath. A cradle. A slow spiraling hush. And a sleep that curves to fit you exactly. You're not sure how long you slept. There's no shame in not knowing. In Thebes, time stretches like linen left too long in the sun, softening, thinning, eventually fraying into something else entirely. You wake slowly, your thoughts rising like the last embers of a fire. The pillow beneath you, your pillow, is warm with memory. Your spine feels longer somehow, like sleep has gently pulled you into your full height. You sit up beneath the fig trees and brush the dew from your sleeve. The morning is quiet, even by Theban standards, not the absence of sound, but the fullness of listening. A moment where the world seems to hold its breath just to let yours happen more easily. The river is still. The city behind you is wrapped in the first yawn of morning, clay ovens glowing with expectation, voices not yet raised, donkeys still dreaming upright. You carry your headrest back to the artisan square. You pass familiar faces now. Faces that once studied you as a visitor and now nod as if to say, "Ah, the one who carved silence." You return to the grove of elder carvers, the ones with patient hands and stories that begin 3 decades before the part that matters. The man who gave you the sycamore block sits sharpening his blade on a flat stone. He doesn't ask to see your work. He doesn't need to. You'll want to bless it, he says. No, not a suggestion. No, not a command. Just a truth. You follow him into a structure built from reed and light, part shrine, part shadow, part workshop. The inside smells like cedar shavings and wild sage. Hanging from the beams are dozens of tiny objects, slivers of bark, broken carving tools, bits of unfinished dreams, each one tied with thread and a whisper. Gestures toward a bowl of blue pigment. It glows faintly, even in the shade. This is lapis ash, he says. the dust of dreams already dreamt. You dip your finger into the powder. It feels cool, almost indifferent. You press it to the underside of your pillow. A single dot. That's all. No glyph, no symbol, just a mark of passage. A historical fact. Lapis lazuli, mined from what is now Afghanistan, was one of the most prized pigments in Egypt, associated with royalty, divinity, and night. While most commonly used in jewelry or funerary masks, a rarer practice was the grinding of imperfect stones into powder for ceremonial use. Pillow artisans sometimes used it sparingly to anoint their most important pieces. An obscure cultural tidbit. Some believed that placing a drop of lapis pigment beneath a headrest would allow the sleeper to see through the eyes of Ra while dreaming. Others said it simply brought peace. Still others said nothing at all, merely bowing to the color and walking away. Historians still debate whether this practice was widespread or limited to temples. But lapis-dusted pillows have been found in both royal tombs and modest graves, suggesting the gods didn't mind where sleep began, only that it was taken seriously. You place your headrest on the woven mat before you. Bows, so do you. And in that moment, nothing more needs to be said. Because now, your headrest is no longer yours alone. As it belongs to the lineage. To the hush between hammer and chisel, between inhale and exhale, between the question and the sigh. And for the first time, you understand. You did not make a pillow. You made a pause. It's your last evening in Thebes. You know this not because anyone says so, or because a door has closed, or because a curtain has been drawn. You know it because you've begun to feel the edges again. A loved time, a love skin, a love story, not sharply, but gently, like light returning to the room after a long night of candles. You walk through the city like a dream that knows its ending. You pause in familiar doorways. You trace your hand along walls still cool from morning shade. You nod at old friends who only learned your name once, but who remember the curve of your steps like an old song. You return one last time to the sleep house. Though the cat is there, of course it is. Sitting upright this time like it's been promoted to manager. You place your headrest beside the others on the ceremonial shelf. You don't mark it. You don't need to. Its curve already carries your breaths. He hands you a folded linen cloth. For the road, he says, or for the dream you'll wake into. You don't ask which one he means. It doesn't matter. He's right either way. That night the sleep house is quiet. Not silent, just respectful. Each head rests where it belongs. Each mat holds its weight without judgment. Each breath is taken with trust. You lie down. Not to forget. Not to rest. But to say thank you. To the wood. To the linen. And to the people who made you slower, and softer, and still. A historical fact, the last rite of many pillow carvers when they passed their tools to the next generation was to sleep once on the first pillow made by their apprentice. It was both blessing and test. If the master slept through the night, the pillow was declared dream-worthy. If not, more work was done. But either way, the moment was honored as sacred. A obscure cultural tidbit. In one private letter found preserved in wax and linen, a carver wrote to her sister, "I made a pillow so quiet it silenced my worries before I even laid down. I don't know what I carved into it. I just listened and it arrived." Historians still debate whether this final stage of the craft, of listening to wood, to breath, to rest itself, was mystical or just the product of a life spent watching people learn how to stop trying. But you no longer debates. You lie on your mats. And this time you do not feel the wood beneath your head. You feel the river, the one inside you, the one that remembers. You feel it rock you left and right, in and out, until even your name becomes a soft curve. You sleep, not to leave, not to escape, but to be. And when you wake, whenever you wake, you will carry that curve with you, tucked behind your eyes, beneath your breath, so soft as a thread, so strong as a tree, so silent as a pillow that knows your shape. The morning arrives again in Thebes. But this morning is different. Not louder, not brighter, but clearer. Like a window has been polished from the inside. Like the city has taken one long, deep inhale and is finally exhaling it with ease. You rise slowly from your mat at the sleep house, letting your limbs remember what it means to move. The air smells like ground barley, fresh ink, and the last of the night's jasmine wilting in the corners. You fold your blankets. You smooth your mat. You nod once to the cat, who is now pretending it never knew you, which somehow feels like a blessing. Then you walk one final time through the streets that carried you. You walk past veils, drying in the breeze like sails that never left the ground. You pass carving shed, where new apprentices already argue over how much curve is too much curve. You wave to who doesn't wave back, he just holds up a small clay cup. It's empty, that's how you know it's for you. You sip, it tastes like chamomile and unfinished thoughts. As at the river's edge is teaching two children how to carve words into wet clay. He looks up and smiles when he sees you. Then he returns to his lesson, whispering, "Slow down." The dream already knows where it wants to go. You do not stop walking, but your steps grow slower with each breath. You carry your headrest again, not because you need it, but because it knows you. And you do not abandon something that has held your sleep. You follow the edge of the Nile until the houses grow smaller and the wind grows larger. You reach a quiet hill outside the city. dotted with trees that grow as if they, too, once carved pillows out of themselves and now bloom in gratitude. You sit beneath one of them. The sun is warm. Your breath is easy. You place your headrest on the ground beside you. You don't lie down. No, not yet. You want to look at it one last time. Not as an object, but as a companion. The wood worn soft at the corners. A grain smoothed by oil, by hands, by patience. As a curve that follows the line of your jaw, your thoughts, your lineage. You think of all the dreams it held. Not just yours, but the ones it learned to expect. And for a moment you see it. The whole story. Not from above, but from within. The girl weaving linen before dawn, singing to herself because her mother once did the same. The boy carving a jackal's ear into a block of driftwood, giggling at the idea of chasing away snoring. The old man sanding a pillow for the final time, whispering thanks to the tree it came from. The woman writing lullabies to furniture and meaning every word. You see them all. And you understand that rest is not escape. It's return. It's remembering that your body belongs here. That your breath has rhythm. That your neck deserves support. That dreams are not foolish, they are sacred visits. And the pillow. The pillow is the one thing that remembers what your waking self forgets. That stillness is not the absence of movement. It is the presence of trust. And you trust this. You trust the curve. You trust the hush. You lie back finally, letting your head sink onto the pillow's arc one last time. You do not think of endings. You think only of weight shared. Of stories shaped like cradles. Of sleep that fits. Exactly. And now, dear listener, you're lying still. The story is behind you. But the softness it left remains. You feel it in your arms. Your chest. The tips of your fingers and the long line of your legs, sinking now just slightly into the surface beneath you. No need to hold your thoughts. No need to name them. They've already found the pillow that was carved just for them. Let them rest now. Let the neck loosen, the jaw unhinge. The shoulders melt like beeswax left too close to the sun. Feel the weight of the day quietly excusing itself from your body. Not rushed. Not pushed. Just released. The breath comes slow now. In, out. Not controlled. Not counted. Just there. Steady. Kind. Your body understands this rhythm. It remembers it from long before clocks or calendars. long before deadlines or dinners or distractions. This rhythm is older than all of that. Older than stories even. It is the rhythm of being humans. Of lying down. Of trusting the world enough to close your eyes. And so you do. You let your head float on whatever pillow holds it. Even if it's not carved from tamarisk or stitched with protective spells. Even if it's just yours. So tonight, that's enough. Now the story is over. But your rest is just beginning. Let the wood remember you. Let the sleep rise like the Nile. Let the hush carry you. And let the dreams arrive. Slowly. Softly. With no hurry at all. Good night.